Hello, everyone. This is Ali Azzeddin from Fourth Generation for Education, and this is our third webinar for today around approaches to learning or 21st century skill. Feel free to introduce who you are in that chat, where you are watching from, and remember to put to everyone. If you have any questions, send it in the Q&A. We are also live on Facebook, so I'm keeping an eye also on all the interaction on Facebook. I'm so excited to collaborate this morning with Leila. We had a chance to collaborate together a few years ago here in Dubai, and she's my speaker for the classrooms without grades. Leila, our attendees are watching from KSA, UAE, many different countries, depending on where they are on the planet. So it will be an interactive session, so get ready to learn and to explore with us. And I can see the list of the countries is increasing. China, Beijing, hello Christine. We have Kurdistan, Erbil, Iraq, we have India, and many, many more countries. So I'm sure Leila is excited. Uzbekistan, Lebanon, Kuwait. So the audience is very diverse. And again, I can see very familiar names. Hello, Rebecca, watching from China as well. So Leila, are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready, of course.
Okay. Let's know a little bit about who you are, and then we check the questions that you prepared for this webinar.
Of course. So that's me. I am Leila Abaza. I was born in Lebanon. I've been in the UAE since 2002. And this is where I gained my passion for education, and I got my first job here. I have a master's degree in quality management in education. I'm very passionate about teaching and learning. I'm also a learner myself. My passion is recently gradeless classrooms and growth mindset. And this is what we will be talking about during this webinar. All right, Ali, ready to start?
Yes, so we have a few questions that we are going to answer together. So, and this is Siwar from Tunisia who's joining, and I'm sure it's very early morning in Tunisia here. So what are the questions, Leila?
All right, so the question, this is first of all, every time I try to speak to colleagues or to teachers about going gradeless, and they're all panicking. It's a big change for them. They don't know what it is. We'll make it easy, I hope, during this webinar. And as Ali said, you're welcome to ask me any question you want. So
I hope our audience, they are not looking like that, and they have a smile this morning with their cup of coffee, or maybe a snack if it's their afternoon. So
oh yeah, I hope so too. So let's get started. So what is going gradeless to you? Feel free to give your ideas in the chat box, just to see and compare what you said going gradeless is to what we're going to talk about today. So gradeless. Gradeless usually is a word that doesn't exist in the dictionary. So it was invented, it's a new invention, and people around the world, teachers around the world are rallying for it to go, to have classrooms without grade. So what is a gradeless classroom? It's grading less, or a classroom without grade. I put the two definitions of grading less, which is limiting the impact of grades within the current constraints, as in having grades not impacting the results of the students, or a classroom totally without grades in order to avoid demotivating our students and the damage it has on our students. I'm sure there are a lot of parents here watching, and they know how demotivating grades can be to their children.
And before you continue, maybe Leila, and maybe you can tell us about the quick discussion that you had with your son before you start.
Oh yeah, thanks, Ali. I was oblivious. Okay, so I'm a firm believer in going gradeless, and I was telling Ali that I was shocked before starting the webinar now. My son came to me and said, so what's the webinar about? And I said, it's about schools without grades, your classroom without grades. And he said, no, that's awful. We need grades. This is what motivates me to do better. And I was out of my mind. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to discuss this with him. But he's listening to me.
I hope he's watching the webinar. So the first question that we want you to answer in the chat on Facebook or on Zoom, why should you consider going gradeless? So why do we need to move from grades, and why do we need this shift? So what do you think? Put your ideas in the chat, and I get.
Can read them, Ali. To me, it would be good before.
Of course, I'm going to read. I'm going to read the answers, Leila. The first reflection from Andrea. Andrea is watching from Uzbekistan. Hello, Andrea. She said because we want the focus to be on the student learning and understanding, and not only on the grade. So why do you think we need to move from grades? Put your ideas in that chat on Zoom or here on Facebook. Dalal, she's been with us also since the morning, watching from Qatar, because we want to focus on the learning, and we want to focus on solving real life problem and not the test. Natasha, because grades create stress and we don't want our student to be stressful. Henna is saying we want to focus on the process and not the product, and so that's why we prefer to have a gradeless class. And grades, it's draining for students and parents, so we should focus on the outcome. According to Lama, Lama is watching via Facebook. The most important is what to know and what to do, and not the mark. We're looking at competence and we are looking at skills. Again, the word stress is appearing on Facebook. To focus on the student development. This is from Rana, and I think Rana is watching from Lebanon. To reduce anxiety and to avoid the low self-esteem, because we want to be more holistic. Now, for all the people who are asking questions, please put the question in the Q&A, because we will have a time to check them during the webinar today. So these are the ideas, Leila. And let's say that maybe you had a chance to work with traditional system, and one of your main objective is to really move to these new ideas in education. That's why we are discussing the topic in this webinar, right?
Right, Ali. To tell you from personal experience, I was a student who hated grades. They were super demotivating for me because you're always comparing yourself to someone else. It was a competition all the time in the classroom, and never teamwork or cooperation. So you didn't have a chance as a student to learn from each other. Everyone wanted to hide his own work, you know, because they wanted to be the best, and there was no sharing of knowledge. I worked also in schools who were and still are very strict with the grading system, and they love the grades, you know, where teachers are lost without their grades. However, in my department, I had an experiment with going gradeless, and it was fantastic for the students. So let's go ahead and see. I will start with Alfie Khan. Okay, Alfie Khan is one great researcher about going gradeless. And as you can see, the quote I chose for him that says, if faculty would relax their emphasis on grades, this might serve not to lower standards, but to encourage an orientation toward learning. In his research, Alfie found that going gradeless tends to reduce students' interest in their learning itself. And this is what most of you answered. It reduces also students' preference for challenging tasks and the quality of students' thinking. So if I want to think about students' interest in the learning itself, this is very normal, since students are all focused on the grade. They don't care about the content they are learning. All they care about is my grade, what the grade is going to be. I'm going to study just for that exam and forget everything else. With regards to students' preference for challenging tasks, I'm sure we all chose the easy way out every single time. So whenever the teacher gave an exam and you had the bonus question, or even if she gave us a homework, and when you do as well, give your students a homework and you put that challenging question, most students don't solve that. They don't care. They want the easy way out. There's lots going on in their lives right now, Ali, as you know. With all the activities, you are a parent and you know, to a small girl, and you know how many activities she has after school. So I'm sure when she grows up, she'd rather as well go to a less challenging task. And the quality of students' thinking. There's a lot of students who come to me and say, I work better under pressure. And this is totally wrong. So actually, research and science has proved that you think less under pressure and you don't give your best work. So moving along, going gradeless. For you as a teacher, why is it important? Our teachers are demotivated. I know that from the teachers I work with. They don't want to grade. They have a pile of papers to correct. Students are not doing their best, and it's really tedious. So why should you as a teacher consider going gradeless, regardless of the impact on students? One, going gradeless will help you rediscover your subject. I found this quote in A Mathematician's Lament for Paul Lockhart, and I was shocked when I read it. And he said, the first thing to understand is that mathematics is an art, and the difference between math and other arts, such as music and painting, is that our culture does not recognize it as such. And part of the problem is that nobody has the faintest idea what it is mathematicians do. Nevertheless, the fact that there is nothing dreamy and poetic, nothing as radical, subversive, and psychedelic as mathematics. I'm sure that you are reading this quote now and thinking this was not my experience at all at school. I surely did not have that experience at school. Please excuse me, all the math teachers who are watching. Math for me was very difficult. I couldn't understand it. I was demotivated. I was always focused on the grade. And unfortunately, I did not get good grades in math. So by eliminating grades gradually, you actually focus more on the subject you are teaching. You have the passion to teach it. You're not worried about what you are teaching to students to achieve a certain goal that the school has set for you. But quite the contrary, you are teaching from the heart. You are teaching exactly what you're passionate about. It helps you become a better teacher, naturally. Daniel Pink is a businessman, and in one of his TED Talks, he said that he talked about schools, and he said that the way schools are built today do not cater to what businesses need. In business, there are no sticks and carrots. You don't get a grade. And in his TED Talk, he said, what's alarming is that our business operating system, it's built entirely around these extrinsic motivators, around carrots and sticks. And these are the carrots and sticks that we learn at school. If you do a good job, I'll give you an A. If you do a poor job, I'll give you an F. That's actually
the stickers collections. You collect 5 stickers and then you go early to recess.
That's so true, Ali. So he said that these are the skills.
Just for fun. So I'm not sure, Leila, if you at work, if you collect 5 stickers, do you get a day off?
No. I wish, Ali. So in the 20th century, these were the skills that were needed for the marketplace. But today, in the 21st century, this is not true. You need to have intrinsic motivators for doing what you do. You have to find it inside of you. As a teacher, if your class, all your class gets an A in your subject, but when they move on to another teacher and they fail because you only taught for the grade, you're not a good teacher, and your 5 stickers are meaningless here. And so another reason you need to move to gradeless is to get a life. This quote is from Carol Jogo with Papers, and I'm sure all of the teachers here have said that. So you're reading as fast as you can, but the pile of essays is growing taller and taller. You're feeling guilty. Students are harassing you, asking you, when are you giving us back the papers? I need my paper. And grades become, they start consuming your entire life. So going gradeless, you're no longer focused on the grade, so you're not correcting this paper to give a grade. On the other hand, you're enjoying what your students have written. You're enjoying the thought process that went into giving you this assignment that you asked for and writing this exam. So you're not running against the clock, and instead you and your students are enjoying this process of learning. Do you agree, Ali? All right. Now,
I totally agree, and I'm replying on the chats. I'm saying the quotes are very powerful that you started with, and Andrea is saying that this is a spot on, Leila. So our school system, and then people are commenting on the school system and the current situation that schools are still locked in this old model, and they are still focusing on the grades, on the competition. And so we need a mind shift. So, and that's why we have the following question for you.
go
So
ahead.
how could you start going gradeless in your school? So if we are all agreeing that this is a problem, so where do we start? Let's hear your answer and let's hear your ideas, and then I'm sure Leila can give us some tips from her experience and from what did she implement in her classes. And
I want
remember,
to,
yeah,
sorry,
sorry,
I need to interrupt you. I also,
choose to everyone in the chat so everyone can read your answers and your idea. Yes, Leila.
I wanted them to also talk about the challenges they think they might face with going gradeless in their schools.
Yeah, so the
I
first
don't
challenge and the first area where we need to start is the parents. And I'm sure everyone is writing parents in capital letter because again, we are parents, and then maybe we are still insisting on the teacher with our question, is he the first, is he the second, he got 99.5 or he got 100 over 100. So Rebecca is also referring to the board, to the school leadership, the high school exams. So what about these national exams? We can start with developing a school culture focused on feedback, feed forward. This is from Christine. The constructive feedback, chat with the student and ask them how do they feel about this. So involve the student in these kind of decision. And maybe here again, we can avoid the chat that you had this morning with your son about, yes, grades are very important. According to Majid is following on Facebook. He's saying that we can focus a lot on the feedback, tell them what to do next. Nermeen is saying we can start with professional development. Nermeen will be a speaker this afternoon, and so she's watching. Yeah, so these are some of the ideas.
I think they summarized the entire webinar.
Yeah.
You're on the right track. That's very good. So if you didn't get the grade you wanted, it's highly possible I didn't get the work I wanted. This is exactly what teachers keep on saying. And this is the worst thing a teacher can say. So how do you go gradeless in your classroom? First thing you need to do is to establish clearly learning outcomes. I will be talking about each specifically. Provide ongoing feedback and minimize grades. So these seem actually very obvious. And with regards to this, to the people who said, yeah, we need, our main problem is the parents and the students, this is absolutely correct. Parents always want to know where do their students rank in the system. Students, my son is the first one, don't know how they're doing unless they're minimized to a number. And unfortunately, students are not a number. They are not defined by this number. It doesn't represent who they are. And I'll go on more about this. So usually teachers tell me, well, we have standards, we need to follow, what should I do? So Larry Ainsworth, about prioritizing Common Core, for those of you who use the Common Core standards, he said that prioritizing the standards has nothing whatsoever to do with lowering the bar and everything to do with focus. You should focus on the standards that matter to your students. It is about less being more. The difference is the degree of focus given to standards over others. It might seem to you as if it is utopic, that this cannot happen. I will share with you an experience that I had more than 10 years ago when I wanted to go gradeless. And we were struggling in the department that I was working with about how to go gradeless. So what we actually did is we looked at the Common Core standards, we listed them, And we gave each standard a grade from 1 to 3. 1 being, okay, I would fail my students if they didn't know that standard. 2, this standard is definitely important, but I wouldn't fail my student, if they didn't get it. And the third, number 3, if you graded the standard 3, that would be that this standard is good. We'll get to it when we'll get to it. This is actual example of what we've done. So if you look in English in grade 9 and English in grade 10. So in grade 9 for semester 1, we used, I can use textual evidence to support my claim. This is something that all students need to acquire. And in semester 2, it had to be, I can identify and develop a literary theme. For grade 10, it was, I can identify and develop character traits to shape a person. And in semester 2, I can identify and develop how one's action shapes one life. So as you can see, we focused on specific standards. And these were the standards that were a must for us. We had, of course, writing was important, all came along, but we did not fail our students based on that. So yes, you can go gradeless while focusing on all the standards that you want that are important to you, again, as a teacher, okay? So we have Daniel Pink, who's also a person who is in the gradeless community, who said that when you do that, you're building autonomy, mastery, and purpose. When this is what you're teaching your students, you're teaching them that they're going to a certain specific outcome. This is a specific objective I need to reach, okay? They're mastering that standard and they have a purpose for getting there. Moving on, feedback, the famous feedback. You get feedback, I get feedback, everybody gets feedback. Traditionally in schools, feedback are either you give grade, you give a comment, or you give a score with comments. And unfortunately, all 3 are bad. And we've all been guilty of using 1 or all 3. Scores alone, of course, the student's just gonna look at the score, like my son, and say, okay, I got it, or I didn't get it, I'm good at it, or I'm a failure. Comments alone, we usually don't give them on any assignment. They're usually or frequently done orally in class. Yes, good answer, focus more on that, but the student would not retain that. And scores with comments are also not a good idea, because once the student reads the score, they will not read their comment. So it is not worth it. So Ruth Butler did a study on how to grade students and what effect scores with comments do for students. And she said that if you get a good score, you become complacent. Excuse me for the typo of double E. The second one, if you get a bad score, you get discouraged. And the last one is scores with comments. You just look at the score, as I told you, and you don't look at any of the comments. And then, unfortunately, you spent a lot of time correcting this essay, jotting down your notes, telling the student what to do, and then they look at the score, crumble the paper, and throw it in the bin. And all your work as a teacher has gone for nothing. So what should you do? I follow actually the Mark Barnes method. I got the book with me. This is inspired by his book, Assessment 3.0. Very, very, very good book. It's about throwing out your grade book and inspiring learning. So Mark Barnes gives only feedback, says that you as a teacher should only give feedback, but not any kind of feedback. The feedback should be is called the SE2R, which is summarize, explain, redirect, and resubmit. So let's get to it. If I get a paper from a student, when I summarize exactly what the student did. So for example, I noticed you provided several pieces of research to your project that will help you build a strong argument, but you did not include a citation. So I summarized the good part and the bad part. Then I'll move on to explaining to that student why I need the citation. And so I say citation sources is important. Citing sources is important because it gives credit where credit is due, and it can help your reader to learn more by visiting your sources. Then I redirect my student. So now he knows what was good, what was bad. I explained exactly what was bad in it and how to fix it. I redirect them. And I say, I want you to go back and add your sources. Do you know how to do this? This question, do you know how to do this, is very important, Ali, because most students don't know sometimes what you ask them to do, and they're too afraid to come to you and ask. So once you write it down, do you know how to do this? They will come to you and they will come and ask. And if they know, then all the better. And then you give them a chance to resubmit. Once you do this, you tell them, please resubmit your work, and I look forward to reading your revision. I actually do this. I don't believe in zeros, and I don't know who invented the zero. If I want to talk about it mathematically, let's say if I have 4 A's and I have 1 0, my score will not be A. It will be probably a C+, which is ridiculous. It's demotivating for me as a teacher. I only got 1 0, but all my other work was perfect. So that's why I always give students a chance to resubmit, because even when you go into real life, into the world, when you're working on a project, you have the chance to resubmit your proposal. You have a chance to go back and fix what went wrong, okay? So moving on. A 2.0 student can know better than a 4.0 student. Grades don't determine intelligence, they test obedience. And this is so true. I tell my students, you have to think the way I think. You're not allowed to think for yourself. You have to do exactly as I say, otherwise you fail. And this is what most teachers in a graded classroom fail to notice, that there are a lot of students who are very talented at other things, that they can produce their work in other ways other than the way or the format that we want them to produce or we want to see. So how do I set up my gradebook? I set up my gradebook to communicate progress. So I put 0, 1, and 2. 0 is pretty basic, so he did not attempt to submit the work, or she did not submit her work totally, so that's naturally a 0 because I didn't receive it. However, when I receive it, I can move it to a 1 or to a 2. If I put N1, it's a needs revision. Here, it doesn't matter if the job was done properly. It's just the mere fact that that student put in the effort to submit their work to me. That's enough. That's an immediate 1. Because once they resubmit the work, as you've seen here, they will get a chance to correct all the mistakes they had, and they will move on to a 2, which is meeting my expectation. So you notice, Ali, here, there's no competition between students. Students are welcome to help each other, welcome to collaborate, welcome, to think together and not compete against each other. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, my school is asking me for grades. I have to grade. There's no way around grading. What should I do? What I do is portfolios. You can use, there are lots of platforms where, like Padlet, for instance, where you can ask students to submit their portfolios. You can also use Google Forms. All of these are options for you. And the concept behind that is I always ask my students to put their work in a portfolio. And every time they submit a work, we discuss it together. We talk about it and we agree on a grade together. Some teachers tell me, yeah, but a student will put his grade as an A all the time. Surprisingly, no. Our students are very self-conscious and they're too afraid to put an A for themselves, even when they deserve it. For those of us who work in the UAE and are familiar with KHDA and ADAC and the self-evaluation process, we never put for ourselves outstanding. We are always afraid to say outstanding. We say very good or good to hide. And this is all in the way we have been brought up, don't show off. And so a minority of students, in my experience, I only had 2 or 3 who had put an A for themselves when they did not deserve it. And the thing is, when you put a portfolio, you are the one who is going to sit with your student, discuss the grade and agree on it, both of you. So both of you should come to an understanding of, yeah, Ali deserves a B and he knows why he deserves a B. I agree to it, he agrees to it. So when they receive the report card, there's no surprise there. That's it. So they know exactly what they've done. You might say this is tedious, it takes a lot of time. No, there are multiple of ways to do it. You can do it through video recording, where you can record yourself giving comments and feedback without having to actually write it down. Voice recordings are something I use. I'm very bad with video recordings. And you can also, I love as well, sitting with a student face to face, just kneeling in front of their desk and telling them what went wrong, what went right, and how can they improve. Finally, to conclude, I know it is a challenge. I know it's a difficulty, but if you never push yourself outside your comfort zone, you will never improve. Okay, Ali, that's it for me. I spoke a lot.
No, you have some question now. It's very provocative, and people are really interacting in the chat. And so to go to the question now, I would like to ask you, so going gradeless, and what about universities? What about this whole system? I'm sure maybe you have an answer for that.
Yes, I do. Actually, if you look up the University of Michigan, they don't look for your GPA anymore. Even if you've been homeschooled and you don't have your AP exams, you can apply to the university and you will get in. Surprisingly enough, as well, you have Harvard University, who started accepting homeschooled students who have never been to school before. The system is moving, and it is for, it's for us to start that move, to start asking these questions, to start talking about it for universities later on, to make that change. And mind you, a lot of students now don't go to university and they're excelling. I wouldn't say that to my son, but yeah.
And I see here, like Rana, she put an idea. I would say that the grade is not anymore coming from the teacher. The grade is coming from the teacher and the student together when they are looking at the portfolio or the evidence of learning. And so this is a kind of balancing the approach between no grades at all and then the grades only coming from the teacher.
Yeah, because you remove the stress, Ali. You remove the stress from, she's going to give me that grade or he's going to give me that grade. No. And I'm sure math teachers are going to say, no, this is not applicable for math or for sciences. And this is not true. Because if you don't teach the traditional way of just going into class and saying to students, 1 + 1 = 2, but involving them in a project whereby they need to discover why 1 + 1 is 2, and I'm giving a basic example, then here you're involving critical thinking, which is a must in our classrooms. Okay.
So I answered the questions of Dalal and Noura, which are related to the university. George is also asking something about the university, but then is also connecting it to the parents, to the society, to the whole system. So how do we start with parents, Leila?
Parents are going to be a challenge. I'm not going to undermine that, yes, because they want to know and they're going to ask the question, but I want to send my son, my daughter to university, what they are going to do. It always starts with the teacher at the beginning and with your stakeholders at school. It's building this culture, as someone said at the beginning of the webinar, building this culture that it doesn't matter. And what I want is for your son, your daughter to learn. And if you noticed in the webinar, I said, if you must submit grades, the grades are going to come from an understanding between you and your student. So I'm not totally eliminating the grade yet, because the culture hasn't shifted yet to a no grade classroom, but I'm attempting to, by still giving them that grade, but coming to an understanding with them of why they did get that grade, and for them to convince me why they do or do not deserve such a grade.
Yeah, it's this whole idea for our IB educators of co-constructing with the students, and then they are partners with us. So before we wrap it up, Leila, let's announce. So next month in December, put it on your agenda, 11th of December, we are going to do a well-being day. And so we will be looking at the well-being from different perspectives, different speakers, counselors, psychologists, and we will be doing the day as usual, French, English, and Arabic. For today, we are going to have a short break, and then after the break, we still have a 3 session. So if you didn't register or you want to register or invite someone, the afternoon session will be full of practical ideas. And so the morning it was more provocative, and then the afternoon we are going to look at application of the ATL in the classroom from 2 different speakers, Rachel and Nermeen, and then we will wrap up the day with an art session, how we can integrate that ATL in the art classes, and this session will be in Arabic. French speaker on Tuesday, we have a full session for you about ATL, so join us. This is done on monthly basis and it's a free event. This is our YouTube channel. All the videos will be published here by the end of the day, maximum tomorrow. So if you want to use all these webinars for professional development, self-learning, they are here for you. And then I have more questions, Leila. Go ahead.
Yeah, if anyone, since the session is over, if anyone has any more questions, they can always email me, okay?
Yes. Yes, so we shared the Leila email, and Leila, you can also put it in that chat. I
Sure.
have what kind of class time investment does the conferencing take? So Anna is asking, when we sit with this child to do and to put the assessment together, so how much time does it take? When do you schedule it? How do you do it?
Excellent question. The scheduling is up to you to see how much time do you have. But my advice to you, to minimize the time, you can always do it through video recordings, where the student will record himself saying his or her arguments, and you reply with your own arguments about what grades should be there. This way, when you meet with your student, it will only take 5 minutes because they already know what you expect from them. You already know what they want. So yeah. It's not very difficult.
With the technology now, it's really, the learning is not happening between 8 and 2 p.m. So 8 in the morning and 2 p.m. You can really find very creative way of doing the conferences. Now, Christine is sharing with us a comment. Some educative approaches are working fully gradeless since years. Montessori, Steiner, in some countries like Switzerland, for example, grades are not very important. And so, yes, the change is coming. And we as educators, we need to be ready, and we need to look at all these documents to refer you showed us some books, some quotes, some speakers who are sharing the same perspective, Leila.
Yes, that's true, Ali. And there's no one way to do it. You know, teachers need to explore to find it their way. And one other important thing is it's no longer a question of, are we going to go gradeless? It's when are we going to go gradeless? It's coming. Okay, so we need to all get ready for it.
Very good. So you can use also this webinar to do the discussion at your school, to share it with the parents, and then we stay connected. Here in Dubai, it's our now lunch break. Maybe some people are going to have their breakfast, and some people are going to get ready for their dinner. I will meet you after the break for 3 more webinars today. If you are available, feel free to join us. Thank you, Leila. This was very inspiring.
Thank you so much for hosting me, Ali. Take care.